Do you know what's the common excuse which people make of their sins and wrongdoings? They are the same which disbelievers use to make. Those who associate others with Allah in His divinity will now surely say, "Had Allah willed, neither we nor our forefathers would have associated others with Allah in His divinity, nor would we have declared anything which Allah did not forbid as forbidden." Even so, those who had lived before them gave the lie to the truth until they tasted our chastisement. Tell them, have you any sure knowledge that you can produce before us? In fact, you are only following idle fancies, merely guessing. 6:149. Then say to them, as against your argument, Allah's is the conclusive argument. Surely, had He willed, He would have guided you all to the truth. Their apology for their crimes and misdeeds would be that which has always been advanced by criminals and wrongdoers, an apology based on the assumption of absolute determinism. They would plead that when they associated others with God in His divinity or unwarrantedly regarded certain things as prohibited, they did so because those acts had been willed for them by God. Had He not so willed, they would not have been able to do what they did. Hence, since they were doing everything according to the will of God, everything was proper. If anyone was to blame, it was God, and not they. They were under compulsion to do what they did, for the ability to do otherwise lay beyond their power. This provides a complete invalidation of their apology. In order to appreciate it fully, careful analysis is required. In the first place, they are told that referencing God's will to justify one's errors and misdeeds, and making it a basis for refusing to accept true guidance was the practice of the evildoers before them. But they should remember that this had led to their ruin, and they themselves were witnesses to the evil consequences of turning away from the truth. Furthermore, it is being clarified that the plea of the disbelievers that the only reason for their error was that God had not willed that they be guided to the truth is based on fancy and speculation rather than on sound knowledge. They refer to God's will without understanding the relationship between God's will and man's action. They entertain the misconception that if a man commits theft under the will of God, that does not mean that he will not be reckoned a criminal. For the fact is that whichever path a man chooses, be it that of gratitude or ungratitude to God, of guidance or error, obedience or disobedience, God will open that path for him, and thereafter God will permit and enable him within the framework of His universal scheme, and to the extent that He deems fit, to do whatever He chooses to do, whether it is right or wrong. If their forefathers had been enabled by God's will to associate others with Him in His divinity and prohibit clean things, that did not mean that they were not answerable for their misdeeds. On the contrary, everyone will be held responsible for choosing false ways, for having a false intent, and for having striven for false ends. The crucial point is basically made at the end in the words, "Then say to them, as against your argument, Allah's is the conclusive argument. Surely, had He willed, He would have guided you all to the truth." The argument which they put forward was, if Allah had willed, neither we nor our forefathers could have associated others with Allah in His divinity, does not embody the whole truth. The whole truth is that, had He willed, He would have guided you all to the truth. In other words, they were not prepared to take the straight way of their own choice and resolution, as it was not God's intent to create them with inherent right guidance like the angels. They would be allowed to persist in the error they had chosen for themselves. God has given us free will. We have the choice to choose the path we walk on.